think of your network much like gold. It is your currency in so many different ways. And I just don't think many SEs like are focused on it that much. Go look at your AE, go to your SE page and be like, SE page, 0 posts, 600 people that they're connected to. AE page, 4,000 connections, all stuff, because they're continually networking with all the folks that they meet, allowing them to just stay on top of that network. I think that's just like a call out for me that I don't think we talk about nearly enough. It is super, super important. Hey, everybody, welcome to episode 28 of Diary of a Sales Engineer. As always, I'm Ryan Kruger, joined by my co host,
Samir Sahai Gosser, and today we've got an exciting guest with us, Yuji Higashi. He is the co-founder of Better Career and previously also the co-founder of Presales Collective. He's now helping pre-sales and sales individual contributors and leaders land their jobs, build strategic networks, and accelerate their careers. They also have a recruiting practice for SCs and AEs. And Yuji is probably one of the first names that I ever came across when I first got into sales engineering through the Presales Collective. And so this is another like pinch me moment of getting one of the, the big boys in the industry on our pod. So really thanks for joining us today, Yuji.
Yeah, happy to be here. Excited to be on the pod. I've definitely, paid attention for a while as far as you guys doing a lot of these podcasts. So I'm excited to finally be a guest on it and chop it up with you guys for a bit. And Samir, we've hung out many times now at the Demo Fest booths that you guys have held. So it's been fun to work with you more closely.
Yeah. So, if anyone ever goes and checks out Yuji's LinkedIn, it's pretty cool to watch the progression and going from outreach to creating Presales Collective and now with Better Career. Like, walk me through what inspired you to even start Presales Collective in the first place, like way back in, I don't know, like 10 plus years ago at this point?
Yeah. We started 2020, so probably about five years, a little over 5 years maybe ago that we started Presales Collective. But for me, it was really out of need. Honestly, I started at a company called Outreach when they were very small, about 35 employees. I was hired in to build out the pre-sales function from scratch, and I had worked in pre-sales a bit from the previous company I was at called Aptio. But when I landed at Outreach, I had to kind of figure out a lot of stuff on my own. And I had never built a pre-sales team from scratch before. And so what I started to do was just look around to see if there were any communities or places to go to network or learn about how to run and build a pre-sales function, and nothing really existed. There wasn't much out there. So then I started creating a community locally here in Seattle where I'm based. And we started with a bunch of leaders in the area from companies like DocuSign and Smartsheet and SAP Concur. And we would get together I would kind of bring everybody together every quarter to just do some workshops and share ideas and learnings. We actually called it Presales Leadership Collective at the time. And then I ended up connecting with James Kakis, who was actually building a similar community in Chicago. He was doing some meetups for SCs locally. And so we started talking. He was also at a similar stage company that I was when I was at Outreach. So we were kind of syncing up every quarter to just share ideas and best practices and challenges that we were both going through in building our respective SC teams. And then we just started talking about like, hey, you're building a community, I'm building a community. Let's maybe build something more globally because nothing exists today. And then we launched it in April 2020, right when COVID hit, actually. And it was kind of interesting timing because a lot of people at that time were looking for community, and they were always online because they weren't going into offices, right? So they were virtual. So we created a virtual space for SCs called Presales Collective, and the rest is kind of history. Like as soon as we put something there, it grew very quickly because there was a big vacuum where there was a massive need, but nothing existed really at that scale. And so a lot of people jumped in, and fortunately it continues to thrive today and grow today and help a lot of people in pre-sales, further their careers, connect with others, network and learn. So yeah, that's kind of the backstory on the journey.
I have a pinch me moment. I had no idea you guys started in April of 2020. This is like crazy time. I'll walk you through like a very quick story here. I got introduced into pre-sales and sales engineering from a friend of mine who knew James and was like, I think you'd be a great fit for this role of sales engineering. He's like, go check out this guy, James's page, does a bunch of posting on this. And so then I saw the Presales Collective. That had to have been right as you guys had spun this up. I honestly thought it was around for a while prior to that. And I will tell you, like, hands down, 100%, the reason why I was able to break into sales engineering was through the Presales Collective. For months on end, I was networking with people through the virtual cups of coffee that you did through Slack and having that automation in.
Yeah.
And through that process, I learned everything about sales engineering. And so eventually I get into this interview process. I knew everything about sales engineering. They were looking for finance folks actually, but I didn't have a finance background. And I'd asked my manager eventually, I said, hey, like everybody on the team came from finance backgrounds instead of me. And he was like, look, the reason why I took a chance on you is he's like, you knew everything about sales engineering. I thought I could teach you finance. So that is a real pinch me moment. I had no idea.
Oh, I love that, man. I love that story. And we hear stories like that fairly often, which is great, right? It's a place where people connect and learn and take advantage of the opportunities just like you did. And, a lot of folks have said they've actually gotten their first SC role or have gotten their next SC role through connections they've made in the communities. Ryan, I love hearing that. That's great to hear.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was only in 2020. Kind of similar, stumbled upon it around that time.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this seems like it's been around for some time. I think the amount of people that were in there and how quickly it like blew up just gave me that perception, which is why I was like, oh, it's probably been around for 10 years. Like ballparking the number.
Yeah.
So
we were, grinding burning midnight oil for sure during that time. We didn't have much else to do because it was COVID. So we didn't have any evening plans or weekend plans. We were locked down. Right. So we were just spent so much time building it and we were able to get pretty far pretty quick. And so that, it's good that was your perception because behind the scenes, we were really trying to grow it quickly and expand globally and all that. So it was fun though.
So going from like the Presales Collective and now venturing off into Better Career, like what was what brought you to doing that?
Yeah, I think the main thing that I started to realize about what I really enjoy when I was building Presales Collective, and also as part of Presales Collective, I was heading up Presales Academy and building that out as well, which Presales Academy was a reskilling boot camp that helped people from all kinds of backgrounds get into their first SC role. It was a cohort based. Oh yeah, you were a coach in that in Presales Academy as a volunteer, which is great. And so, yeah, we ran that for a number of years. Unfortunately, the market, this was in 2021, so the market in tech was very different. And there was a much better appetite for first-time SCs back then there is now. So that's why Presales Academy has now transitioned into more of like a online course, a self-paced model versus a cohort bootcamp style model. But through that experience, I just really, really realized I enjoyed helping people in their careers, whether it's transition into their first SC role, whether it's a move from an IC into a management position or land that next job. And so that's where we built Better Career, started out with Better Careers. We realized we could help a lot of people in their careers, specifically within pre-sales, because there's a lot of career coaches out there, right? They're a dime a dozen on LinkedIn, but not very many, if any, for pre-sales specifically. We also work with account executives on the sales side of the house, but a lot of who we work with, given our background, are pre-sales ICs and also pre-sales leaders. So after I left Presales Academy and Presales Collective, I started this and really focused on coaching to start out. Maddie, who was my first hire at Presales Academy, left and then joined me as a co-founder for Better Career. And we've been kind of building this out ever since. And coaching is still a core of what we do and most of what we do and what we enjoy. Really, we enjoy it immensely, but we've also branched into doing events. We do SC leader dinners now. We also do some recruiting just because we've been getting pulled in those directions from, people in the pre-sales ecosystem and the community. So it's been an evolution. It's been a lot of fun though. And a good journey so far.
So it seems like just like honestly helping other people is what motivates you. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, it really fills my cup. I mean, helping people get that job offer that they're so excited about, especially some people like, increase their income significantly from one job to another, or if they get their first SE job, they're coming from like a non-tech background, they're getting a big pay bump and that's life-changing for them. And so, yeah, I mean, it really jazzes me up every time we get a win like that.
It's so funny you say that. I remember like I was actually just catching up with my friend who introduced me to sales engineering the other day. The reason why the conversation really struck my, sort of like appetite at the time was
Yeah.
not only did the job itself seem to match what I was looking for, but he also told me about the pay piece. And I was like, wait a second, hold on. Like I was in consulting at the time, not making a lot of money. And he's like,
Yeah.
dude, I'm telling you, like, you have to make the switch over to pre-sales. Like, it's going to be way better for you financially. And so that was part of the appetite for me to really like go after, get it, make that first opportunity happen. Something I want to pick your brain on here a little bit is like, you know, the landscape for landing your first pre-sales job is honestly like changing all the time. Like what it looked like back in 2020 looked different in 2022, looked different in 24, it even looks different now. How do
Yeah.
you, recommend to people that are looking to break in for the first time, like what do they need to do?
It's a really good question. How long did it take you? I'm curious before I answer that. From when you decided, oh, I want to be an SC to ultimately getting into that role.
So it was whatever day Kobe died. I'm not sure the exact time on that. That was the day I learned about sales engineering because I can remember leaving dinner with my friend, walking outside, and getting a text message from my other friend saying, "Have
Yeah.
you seen the news?" So memorable day for me. It took me from that day until November later that year for me to actually start my first new role. I had the offer to start that job probably in late September, October time period, but it took me over 150 job applications that I was tracking in an Excel spreadsheet. Now, a lot of that, though, I would say wasn't necessarily super mindful or tactical. A lot of it was like spray and pray on LinkedIn as much as possible, but you're getting filtered out so much that I didn't really find that it was super beneficial. I was trying to do the networking on the side, but the hard part about getting the first opportunity at that time was a lot of places were looking for experience.
Yeah.
And there was one company in Chicago who drove me nuts. I went through like 7+ interviews with them. Every time I got a call, I said, look, I've been going through some of these interviews, and the one thing that stands out to me is like it typically is coming back on my experience. I was like, I want to make sure before we move to the next step that my experience won't be the thing that gets in the way. Ryan, we really like you. We want to move you on. Every call I got on, I did that upfront contract. Of course, I got the validation. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We get to the final demonstration. I spent the entire weekend. I missed a friend's birthday to specifically like study up on this thing. I knew every single nook and cranny in this platform because I was ready for that opportunity, right? And I was like, I got
Yeah.
to put my best foot forward. I'm going to learn this product inside and out. I went to do the demo. Now, mind you, it's my first ever like real product demo, so I'm sure it wasn't outstanding, but I had known the product really well. And the feedback I got at the very end was, "You did the better demo, but we're going with somebody with more experience." And I was like, "You've got to be kidding me!" I
Wow.
just was like losing my mind at a certain point in time. But look, I kept my head down and kept moving forward, thinking that like this is the thing that requires me to take a leap of faith and
Yeah.
just say like, I want this. I know this is it. I have to make it happen and push myself to do that. And eventually landed that first role. But again, the feedback from my manager was, look, you knew everything about pre-sales. So I was ready to teach you the finance stuff and felt comfortable that we could, bridge that gap.
Yeah, man, that's a journey, and it sounds like you persevered and ultimately got there. But yeah, it sucks when you run into that. We've had some clients that we've worked with that have run into some interview process like that, or just or hiring teams that just are immature maybe in a lot of ways where they just can't make a decision, and so they lean on the default of let's just hire somebody that has more experience. It's going to be easier or less risky, right? But fortunately, there are a lot of managers like the one that hired you that see potential and hire for potential versus just purely experience. And so yeah, I mean, what I'd recommend for people that are looking to get into their first SE role, one, give yourself some time because it can take some time and it's going to be a lot of hard work, just like it was for you, Ryan. So just plan on that mentally. Mentally, you need to be in a state where you feel like you can be grinding at it for quite some time, like months, and potentially up to a year, right? So that's the first thing I'll say. The second thing is once you're committed to that, that when you get to the other side, it's amazing. Just like both of you have experienced, and certainly I have too. Once you get into the pre-sales role, it's great. So stick with it if you feel like it's really for you. But the thing is, the way to overcome, you're always going to having no background in SC as an SC, you're always going to run into candidates that have more experience than you, right? That's going to be every time. Your resume alone is not going to sell you for a position. So you have to rely on other ways to stand out. And the way you can do that is through one, the big thing is what we always focus on is showing versus telling. So you can't just talk about your experience because you don't have as much relevant experience. You need to be good at talking about your transferable experience and transferable skills and how they cross over and relate to the SC role. But the most effective way to do that is to show them. So one of the examples that we have first time SCs, one of the things that we have them do as an example is we have them do a micro demo, which is just like a 6 to 10 minute recorded demo of them walking through a platform that shows that they understand how to structure a demo, how to talk to value, they have the presence on camera to be effective in delivering a strong presentation or demo. And that is much more compelling to a hiring manager because one, it shows them, the hiring manager, that this person can really deliver a good demo. They have a lot of potential in that. And it shows they took the initiative to do that, to take that step, where most candidates aren't going to do that. They're just going to fire off their resume into, a bunch of job applications or job postings. So that's one big thing. The other big thing is network. People, especially when they have the opportunity in this market to be more selective, employers have the chance to be more selective as to who they hire because they have a lot of candidates to choose from. They're going to rely on people they trust that they know personally, or that are referred to them through people they trust. And so that's where networking can become very, very important. And so what you mentioned is a key part of the strategy, is constantly be having networking conversations with people in the community. Fortunately, SCs are really open to helping because we're just kind of helpful by nature. Like that's just kind of how we operate in the SC capacity. And so a lot of SCs are very willing to give up their time to do a coffee chat and talk to somebody who's exploring the position. And so we encourage the folks that we work with to really invest energy in that and have goals. So every week you're setting up 2 or 3 coffee chats with SCs or SC managers. And when you do that enough, eventually it leads to an opportunity. And then once you get, referred into an opportunity, then of course you have to shine through all the steps in the process. And there's certainly ways we can do that. But being referred in is a great way to get into opportunities, and then showing versus telling is a great way to get into opportunities and also really stand out throughout the process as well. So those are like the 2 main things. There's a lot of other things, but I won't go into more detail on those now unless we want to, but I know I covered a lot there already.
Yeah, I think that's a super helpful framework, especially the showing, not telling. I know a lot of people will reach out to me and be like, what can I do?
Yeah.
It's kind of like a super broad question. I was like, go get your hands on one of the free softwares out there that has a whole free training curriculum that you can run through. Go learn it and pick a piece of that platform and record something. That's probably like the most tangible thing I can give. So I'm glad that that's also something you share. Now the next piece of this, which I think you have a very unique position on, is like the comp part. I love reading all of your and Maddie's success stories on LinkedIn that you post up of being able to negotiate that up and like having those conversations, tripling some people's income just because of they're coming from a non-tech role to a tech role.
Yeah.
From like a comp perspective, like at a macro level, like how are you seeing, like let's stick with SC comp specifically, from like the structure, like what is that split between base and variable? Let's start there.
Yeah.
I know we're going to pull this thread in many ways, but I think that's a good place for us to start.
Yeah, for sure. Happy to dive into comp. So, we've seen a lot of hundreds and hundreds of job offers for SCs. We also recruit for SCs, so we're very familiar with candidate comp for SCs. And yeah, the most common structure for SC comp is going to be a base component and a variable component. Usually, most common is a 70-30 split. So 70% base, 30% variable. It can also be 75-25 or 80-20 is common as well. But that's usually what's going to be. And then the variable most commonly is based on a team number. That could be a small company, the whole company number. If it's a bigger company, it might be a regional number or a vertical number or something like that. That the variable component is based on. So you can overachieve as a team or underachieve, but you're going to basically be on that team number. There are some companies though that put their SCs on an individual comp plan. So that just means that they're comp more similar to AEs, where they get a larger percentage of the actual deals that they contribute to and are signed to that ultimately close. closed won. So yeah, that's like generally what we see for as far as the comp structure.
I'm curious on that on that like variable comp piece here. Do
Yeah.
you have any metrics that you know of around what the typical split between like AE to SE ratio is? Like, is the ratio between like, a closed one deal, is it 4 to 1? Is it 6 to 1? Like, do you know where that number exists at?
Like the AE to SC ratios that are
Yeah.
common.
Yeah, for like the variable comp pay.
Oh, well, so I'm just trying to understand. So you're saying like the ratio of SC to AE or the variable comp? I'm trying to understand
The
the question.
the aspect of when a closed one deal happens is like AE gets paid X amount, SE gets paid X amount. Like that
Oh yeah.
ratio there. Do you have any metrics on that? I'm curious. I know it's something that seems to be like an appetite online for people to get into, but I'm not sure if there's really anything like that stands out or if you run into anything.
Yeah, I mean the percentage. I don't have the exact data on it, but for when SCs are comped on an individual basis, like based on the specific deals they bring in, the percentage of the value of the deal is a lot less than the AE. The AE is going to be like 10% or 15% of that deal, where the SC might be 2 to 5% of that deal. Usually because now the SC is working across more deals than the AEs are, right? The AEs have usually full cycle responsibilities, whereas the SEs come in for only that middle portion of that sales cycle typically. So that's usually the structure that we see, but I don't have like good like deep sample size of data on that yet. But I would say just anecdotally, that's what we see.
Cool. No, that's super helpful to understand because I think, one thing that Samir and I have encouraged a lot on this show is that typically, like for me, even though this is a hard conversation, an awkward conversation to have, I encourage every SE within the first few weeks of meeting your AE, if you're going to be partnered tightly together, is that you need to sit down and have a conversation regarding your pay structure, how you get paid, when you get paid, all of those things. I find that
Yeah.
the tightest partnerships I've had have all had that conversation because that way, like, if they're not closing deals for a while, I understand why they're looking to take bigger risk and do other things on deals because I understand their financial motivation behind things. So I think it's a really helpful sort of thing to do with your account executives. It's a weird conversation to have, especially like those first couple of weeks. You're like, hey, I really think we should sit down and talk about this. Are you open to it? If they're not open to it, that's totally fine. But I do find that the best partnerships that I've specifically had, we've all had that conversation. So that way I know when a deal closes, what they're making, what I'm making. They know how I'm motivated. I know how they're motivated. All of those things that we really sort of like get in alignment as a team.
Yeah, no, I love that, and that's a lot of what we tell first time SCs or just any SCs when they're starting a new role. That too is in that first conversation with the AEs. Just be very clear on expectations. Like what do you expect of me in this relationship, and then also here's what I expect of you in this relationship, and having that conversation up front just helps the relationship be much smoother because every AE, as you know, has a slightly different style and slightly different expectations. So making sure that you understand the differences between the AEs that you work with and what they really care about with regard to expectations is very helpful. To the other point, though, I would say too, like it's up to the SC leaders and sales leaders to make sure that comp is aligned, right? We don't want SCs and AEs comp to be incentivizing different behaviors. They should be incentivizing the same behaviors ideally. Yeah.
I have a question on like what you've seen when it comes to equity,
Mm.
outside of just like base and variable. And let's just set aside private companies because that equity is, for lack of better terms, like a fake. Like, I mean,
Yeah, it's paper. Yeah.
it's just on paper. Let's focus on like public companies who actually have real stock and there's a commercial value that I can go and sell that. Like, are you seeing equity being part of the package, and like how are you seeing that structured?
Yeah, almost all SC roles will have some sort of equity component. I would say, not all we've seen offers without an equity component at all. Typically with public companies, you're gonna get RSUs, which have a value that a certain value, usually it's a 4-year set of RSUs that vests over 4 years. and then you can have refreshers, every year potentially. So that, for big companies that offer stock as a big part of their comp package, it can be pretty significant, right? Sometimes an extra 50, 75, 100K a year. It might not be that much. Some companies offer a bit less on the equity side. I would say, going back to the private side though, equity, right? It's especially earlier stage. It's pretty risky and doesn't have a lot of value. But for some companies, a lot of companies that are high growth and fairly well-known brands, I'll use like Rippling as an example, right? The secondary markets are a bit more active than they used to be, and they actually exist in the past. They haven't existed as much as they do now. So you can actually sell options or your stock options on a secondary market with a bit more liquidity than you used to be able to in the past. And so, if you're in a small, tiny, unknown company, there's no secondary market for that company stock. But for some of the more well-known, especially a little bit later stage, C, D, E stage companies, there are secondary markets where you can offload your options if you so choose.
If you're unaware of these secondary markets and you work at one of those companies, you should go look that up, what it is worth. Like, that is worth your time to go find those secondary markets and check it out. Another thing I think I want to hit on here too, have you seen from the SE side, like, is there an appetite for signing bonuses? And there was one other piece of that too. I guess we'll start at the signing bonuses. I'm forgetting the second thing I wanted to ask about that.
Yeah. I mean, SEs are getting signing bonuses. I would say it's less common with IC roles, more common with management roles, certainly. But usually it's part of negotiating. Companies usually don't lead with a signing bonus. It's very uncommon. So usually what happens is, we would go in and ask, when I say we, I'm representing like one of our SC clients and helping them negotiate an offer. And so we lead with usually OTE, which is the easier thing to negotiate because it's most commonly negotiated. So they usually have some cushion already pre-approved, or it's easier for them to get it approved because it's more common. The fallback then is, I would also include equity in that. You kind of ask for more of both. And then if they don't give both, then we can fall back to asking for a one-time signing bonus of some amount. And then that can be something that they ultimately give you instead of increasing the OTE or the equity. And they will do that because they want to keep you in a certain band. They want the salaries to all be fairly banded across the team. And so rather than increase your OTE, they might just give you a once signing bonus, something like that.
Yeah, the secondary thing I was going to bring up too, and just curious, like, your perspective on, is the ramp plan that SEs get on, because I think there's sort of an expectation from maybe like newer SEs that, you're going to switch and go to a new company and like you're starting over from scratch day one. But usually I think like most places give like a 3 or 6 month sort of ramp plan, but curious like what you're seeing in the market right now.
Yeah, that's a good question. So when SEs are on a team number, they are usually comped on their variable, or they're usually paid on their variable immediately, like in the quarter that they join the company. So even though they're ramping, they get paid if they join mid-quarter. That's prorated, but usually they're getting paid on that when they're on a team number. When they're on an individual number, it is common, but not all the time. So if you're on an individual plan or you get an offer for an individual comp plan, then I would ask for a draw or a ramp, a paid ramp, so that you are getting paid your variable during the 3 to 6 months it takes you to ramp. But a lot of that will be baked in usually. But again, if it's not part of your offer, you should ask for it.
I have another question that is related to this. I feel like I constantly read everywhere that like SEs are expensive resources.
Yeah.
And part of me is like, yeah, we do have pretty high base, and like our OTs can get up there, but in comparison to some of our AE counterparts, like some of them, especially on the enterprise level, like the bases are higher, and like their OT is like significantly more. Granted, they have a lot more risk. But like, what is that real, or is that like just like something that people are saying in order to almost like justify some other things that like SEs may not have, like SE spiffs, which is something that I'm super trying to push for. But yeah, SEs are expensive resources. Like, can you help me understand that? Like,
We need spiffs, Samir.
Yeah.
We need spiffs. If the sales team has spiffs, the SE team should also have spiffs. Yuji hit on this, right? Like, We're looking to align expectations and duties. If our
Yeah.
duties are to both close deals, then why are AEs only getting compensated on spiffs and SEs aren't a part of that? To me, like that's always been
Yeah.
a huge disconnect for me.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think it's interesting when teams don't spiff both teams that are meant to work very closely together, that are both in it together to win the deal. I don't understand why they would be spiffed the same. So when I was at Outreach building the team, every time they rolled that AE spiffed, I made sure that the SEs were getting something that was aligned. Maybe it wasn't the same size of a bonus or whatever it was, but they were still involved getting something, so that it was very aligned with the AE. So yeah, because I think again, if you're not doing both, it doesn't like make sense to me at all, given what you're expecting the SCs and A's to do when they work together. As far as like SCs being well paid, I mean they are, and you're right. Like there is, it's just a different risk reward profile, right, from AEs to SCs, and like you mentioned, the AEs take on a lot more risk. There's a lot more turnover in that role. Involuntary turnover, right? Like you don't perform for a few quarters and you're out, right? As an AE, whereas an SC, you have more leeway, and there's not that level of pressure that you have to deal with, which is why there's just more upside potentially on the AE side of things. There are some very well paid SCs though, and the bases, yeah, typically are higher with SCs, but you're right, it does depend. There are some enterprise AEs that make really good bases, and but typically those are going to be ones that have a really good track record of selling really big deals, like constant performance of 7-figure plus deals quarter after quarter. But generally SCs have pretty strong comp packages relative to the risk profile that they have.
Do you have like, because I mean, especially in like the tech world, you always hear like product managers, I guess, 400K, 500K, like just like base salaries, and then they have the
Yeah.
equity comp package on top of it. And then as like an SE, you're like looking at that and you're like, what's the math there? If we are constantly being called like expensive resources, but there's like double, triple salaries that are going on in other parts of the business. I'm just trying to understand like just like a kind of a broader pull out of that, because it feels like as an
Yeah.
SE you almost get, like if we really put numbers to it, kind of what I've seen, like high bases are the top I've seen is like 160, 180, like maybe 200 from just like a base level, and then you kind of like flatten out. And yes, like the 1% of the 1% you've heard up there, but it kind of like peaks over there, unless I'm like completely
Yeah,
off.
no, you're right. I mean, there's a bell curve, and you do run into a ceiling eventually for SC roles as an IC without going into a management path. Even management paths have a bell curve and a ceiling too. But just to touch on like the massive comp packages, I think a lot of those are going to be for product managers and things like, are going to be at companies like Meta or Amazon, where the bulk of that is not going to be salary, it's going to be stock, right? And if their stock is crushing it, which they consistently have for a long time, like they're going to have some big paychecks, but again, a lot of that will be through RSUs. So yeah, I think generally what we see for the SC bell curve is there's a lot of roles that are for experienced SCs with a handful of years of experience. There's a ton of roles between 190 and 220 OTE. That's where like probably the top of the bell curve is. And then once you start to get into like 250, 275, 300 OTE, you're kind of down to the other side of the bell curve, where there's just less roles available for those types of levels of comp. And those are typically like 300K OTE for IC SC is typically going to be at a fairly niche specialized company that requires a fairly niche and specialized skill set or domain experience. But there are a lot of SCs that get paid really well at other companies too, like a Salesforce, or like some small startups are paying very well, especially if you're based in New York and SF and willing to go in the office. There are some really good comp packages to be had for those roles, just because those companies are well funded and aggressively hiring, especially if there's some sort of AI space. But yeah, eventually, like if you're trying to get above 300K OTE on an SC role, there's just going to be a fewer opportunities out there. But they do exist. There's plenty of them out there. Plenty of people that make even more, 350, close to 400 as an IC. But there's just less of those opportunities out there.
Can we let's kind of dig a little bit deeper into this? Like, we have tons of listeners on the show, so I'm actually assuming that we have a bunch of senior level SEs. Like, let's say
Yeah.
you're at the far end of the bell curve and you're thinking to yourself, man, I really want to up level. What do you recommend to those individuals that come to you and say, look, hey, I'm at the top end of the bell curve. I still want to push that. Maybe I don't want to go into management. What do you look at? Do you look at, sort of those niche IC roles? Are you recommending that they start migrating into a different career path towards like maybe product, towards revenue? Like, how do you assist somebody like that's looking at it that way?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say if you're already making 275 or 300 as an IC and you want more comp growth, you could find it. You could get up to, like 320, 350. They're like I said, the roles are out there, but the other way that I would think about it is equity play, right? Go find a company that's like a true rocket ship that if you join now, it's going to, in 2 years, the comp based on the trajectory, the equity is going to be meaningfully more, whether they exit or not, right? Because you can still offload in secondaries if you're working for a hot company. So that's what I'd go after probably is the equity play. If you don't want to go into management, you could also go into like more specialized roles, field CTO roles, right? But again, those are kind of going to be comp like very experienced senior IC roles sometimes better, just depends on the company and the space they're in. Outside of that, I think, start doing a side project or something like that and get some income on the side. But I think, most SCs I would say the other option, of course, is to go the AE route, right? If we have a lot of SCs that say, no, I want to be responsible for, hunting and killing the deals, and I want to be comped as such. And so we have SCs that jump over to the AE side all the time. So that's a way to make a lot more and have a lot more upside, like we talked about, if you want to. So that'd be the other way. But yeah, I mean, there's options, but I think most people that get to like 300K as an IC are pretty comfortable, right? They're really good at their craft. They enjoy it, and then they have a good living, so they don't, usually need much more. But everybody's different and motivated by different things, so it depends.
And so that bell curve you described of like the 190 to 220 is the IC OTE range. What are you seeing from like a leadership? Like let's like walk up the ranks of just like first line manager, then like director, then like VP, and maybe like SVP, depending on like these organizations who have like 400, 800 SCs. Like, do you have any knowledge on what that looks like?
We do, yeah. We work with a lot of SC leaders. I will say that generally the SC job market has been tough the last several years, and it continues to be pretty tough. And the reason is a lot of organizations have really flattened their org structure, and so there's a lot of middle managers from SE teams that are on the market looking for new roles. And as we know, a lot of management roles don't get filled externally; they get filled through promotions, hiring from within, oftentimes. So that leaves less roles available to external hires, while at the same time having a pretty big talent pool that's available looking for roles. So it makes it very competitive right now. So what that's done then is just reduce the overall rates for SC leaders. Like I talk to SC leaders all the time. I talk to actually probably 8, maybe 10 a week that are starting to think about their next role, whether they're actively or like they're in between roles because they were laid off, or they're in a role just thinking about what could be next. Some people feel a little bit trapped because they're in a position in the company where the company's not growing. They don't feel like they're growing, but their comp is like really, really strong, but they can't go to market and get that comp match because the market just isn't paying that, or it's going to be really hard to find a company that will match what they're making. So we run into that quite a bit. But I would say for like frontline managers, there's some companies that are paying a lot lower than we used to see. So maybe as low as like 230, 240 for frontline managers with a couple years of experience. But then frontline managers, we've also had make up to, 350, 375 in a frontline role. Again, depends on the space, depends on experience, certainly depends on the market segment. Upmarket enterprise strat is going to be paid more. So those roles will be probably more, for frontline roles would be more in the threes, mid threes, let's say. For second line roles, it's kind of all over the place. There's a lot of overlap with frontline roles. So, it's maybe like 320 to 450, depending on how the scope of the second line leader role. And then once you get above that, a lot of it's going to be very, very all over the place, right? If you're talking about SC leaders managing teams of hundreds of people, the cash comp is probably 400 or 500, and then there's stock on top of that. It's much higher, but it's going to be all over the place depending on the company. So,
and do they have a similar breakdown of like base to variable? Like, is that, and like, how does that
usually,
variable like
yeah.
determine, given that they're yeah.
Yeah. Usually it's going to be based on their scope. So if they have like like America's scope, it's going to be based on America's number. If they have a global scope, it's going to be based on the global number, is what the variable will be based on. The split is usually about the same as the team, 70-30, let's say. Sometimes it's a little steeper, like 60-40. But that's usually going to be where it is, somewhere between there.
So
But
what you're saying, what I'm hearing is that if you're like looking to break into sales engineering, you're saying, I don't know, I'm on the fence if I want to like put in all the work. I don't know if I want to go through 150 job applications. You're saying like, hey, guess what? If you do go through this and you get that role, it can be a fruitful career, is what I'm hearing for everybody out there listening.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, because yeah, a lot of people that are looking to get in are, coming from a lot of different types of jobs that don't pay as well and don't have as much upside. And SC roles have decent stability and have a lot of upside. And so, yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of people, like so many people go from, making 70, 80K, and they get their first SC role and they're at 150 or 160 OT. And then we work with a lot of people too that, take on that first SC role, and then maybe they took it internally, so they're kind of underpaid because they came from a BDR role or tech support role, and they're making like 110, 120 or something like that. But they have now 2 or 3 years of SC experience, and so now they can go to market and actually get a big jump from like 110 or 120 to 170 or 180, 190. We've had people make pretty significant jumps, like 70, 80, 100K sometimes on top of what they were making previously. Once you get a few years of SC experience, the market likes that and will pay for that.
And then I have another question. We talked about breaking in originally. We went through the different pay bands from IC to manager. Now, if you are like an IC right now, trying to get onto that like management and leadership track,
Yeah.
what would be your recommendation? Like, I feel like if I were to go to the market and be like, hey, I want to apply to a manager role, but I've never had any management like experience, like, is that even possible? Should I be focused on trying to do that internally to get that management title first? Like, what would your recommendation be for someone who is trying to take that route?
Yeah, I'd say there's only really two viable paths to management right now. Like, one is internally, so getting promoted to management internally, or moving to a smaller company that is fast growing and come in as an early SC, founding SC, and then move into management again internally. Those are going to be like the two realistic paths. Like, it's going to be very hard to go from an experienced IC into a management role directly externally, just given the SC management market right now. So I would say that, for ICs that want to consider the path to management, you got to start early. Like, one, having those conversations early with your manager to let them know, start mapping out a plan for yourself as far as doing a self-assessment on what are the things that I need to be able to do, what skills and experience do I need to be an effective manager, and doing a gap analysis or self-assessment on yourself. And then having your manager also assess you to figure out, okay, what are the gaps that I need to work on? And then how do I go and close those gaps, right? Maybe that's starting to mentor and coach new hires. Maybe that's coaching other team members or coaching AEs and helping them. Coaching is a big part of being a manager. And that's where, as an IC, you can do a lot of that work without having the title. And so the goal would be to demonstrate as much as you can that you're able to effectively do the job as a manager before they give you the job. And that'll put you in a position to where when the next management position opens, you're going to be a strong candidate. Because one, you've already kind of communicated that, people are aware of that, but also you've started to put the work in to build the skills and do the work that is necessary to be an effective manager. A big part of that is also internal networking and brand building, because you're going to have champions. Not just it's not up to your manager to promote you to a manager role. It's going to be their manager and their manager's manager and the sales leadership as well. You have to have strong champions on the sales leader side to get promoted into an SC management position. That's going to be a must. So build really strong relationships with those folks too.
Shout out to Samir. Like we've talked about this on the pod. Like Samir goes out of his way to connect with everybody at the company.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't stop with just your pod of people.
That's
Like
right.
you need to reach out. You need to schedule virtual cups of coffee. You need to sit down. If you're at a marketing event, you need to get together, go to dinner. If you're at a GKO, find time to go up, approach these people. Like you need to have those conversations. And if you're too afraid to have those conversations, then like probably just not going to make it to that next role. So like listen to the advice here, like make it happen.
Yeah, it's very important. Like internal networking is very important for being effective as an SC, right? Because you even need that network to help get deals done, to do your job well. So, internal networking is very important. Good call.
Oh man, got lots to think about here. And I have so many other questions. I feel like we could do a whole other session of like, how can I go from IC to manager if that's like an interest of the job route? Because you mentioned doing a little gap analysis of what are the skills I have and which are the ones I need. But as an IC, I feel like we're so focused like deal to deal. Like what? Maybe if we could give the audience like what is like the frame of thinking that I might need to shift in order to go from like having the IC mind versus having like a manager mind. Coaching's a piece of it, but I'm sure there's other stuff that you need to think about.
Yeah. I think the biggest mindset shift is you no longer are doing things for yourself, right? You're now doing things for your team and to empower your team to do the work that needs to be done. So you can't no longer roll your sleeves up and dive in and like fix the thing or get the demo ready or save the deal, right? You have to help your team do that effectively and make them successful. And so that for first time managers, that's usually the hardest thing, especially if they come from an internal promotion where they have been a really rock star SC. It's hard for them to back off from being the center of the deal and being very hands on and really helping empower their team to be effective. And it's a very different job, as I'm sure other folks will say. It's a very different job, and it's not for everybody. And people appreciate that when they get into it, but it can be really rewarding, right? Because you're helping people grow, you're helping people win, and your success is really ultimately determined by their success. So yeah.
So before we let you go today, like any final thoughts or words for the audience that you'd like to share? Like I'll kick it over to you.
Man, I guess there's so many things that I'd love to share, but I think the number one thing that I would say for anybody in their careers is, your network is literally the probably the most important thing that you can invest in. Of course, you got to be good at your job, and that's usually where people are very focused because that's right in front of them and that's their everyday. But a lot of folks don't necessarily focus on being intentional about networking and cultivating relationships like we talked about internally outside of your immediate team, but also externally, right? Using the community like Presales Collective or using a lot of different forums that exist for people to connect. And that's super important because it takes time and it grows very slowly. But if you do it intentionally, years later, it becomes something that pays dividends for the rest of your career. So I would say to anybody that's listening, like, take some time to think about how you can intentionally invest in continuing to grow your network, your relevant network, right? In spaces where you want to grow your career, like if it's within pre-sales or sales or some other space or profession, just think about how you can grow your network because that will be the most helpful for you in your career.
And where can our audience find you at?
LinkedIn. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. That's where we run most of our business through is LinkedIn. So yeah, if you are interested in, asking questions, feel free to send me a DM or certainly you can connect with me on LinkedIn.
And
Awesome.
if they're interested in Better Career, what is bettercareer.com?
Yeah, bettercareer.org, actually. It's bettercareer.org, and there's a lot of information and ways to get a hold of us or apply for our coaching programs and all that stuff. So yeah, that's the site.
Look, you have a success story right here, whether you knew it or not back at the time I was looking for a job. Like I can raise my hand and say it was helpful and it actually landed me my first job. So I can only imagine what having your coaching would have done throughout like some of the interview processes that I've gone through. So I think for anybody like eager to break in for that first time, or you're an SE that's looking to make a switch into that next role and you just want to think about it strategically, you're looking to get a bump in pay, a bump in equity, like it pays to have a conversation and it pays to have an expert in your corner to help you out. These conversations are tricky. They are hard to navigate. And honestly, like if you just haven't experienced it before, like it's kind of a tough uphill battle. So I would definitely recommend to anybody in the audience, like reach out. It can only help.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thanks, Yuji. It was an awesome conversation. Really appreciate you coming on the pod.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun and really enjoyed it. And hopefully I'll get invited back someday.
Awesome. We'd love to have you back. Thanks so much for joining us.
All right. See you guys. Stop.
You just have to click leave and then, yeah. Beautiful. Happens every time. All right. My thoughts. I have something I want to say, like something that like I want to say. Hopefully the audience gets it. I don't know. I'm not sure if like this is going to resonate or not, but we're going to take a chance. It goes down in the DMs. Like you need to expand your network. You should be strategically, continually networking with people on LinkedIn or another tool to make sure that you can continue to build your network
Is it
as
working? Are
much
you guys
as
still here?
possible.
Are you
We
guys?
are still
You're back.
You're back.
Okay. Oh, sorry. You were like recording an outro?
Yes, we're recording an outro. It's
Oh,
all good
shit.
though. Like,
Okay.
we'll chop it up in post edit. Maybe I'll,
Okay,
maybe
my
not. We'll
bad.
see.
I'll leave.
We'll
When
put
are
it in
you
the
guys gonna post this though?
in a couple weeks usually.
Okay. All right, cool. I mean, you'll tag me and stuff and I can give it
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can post it, reshare. Okay.
Absolutely,
All right.
yeah. We'll get it all out. We'll let you know like when it's coming, and yeah, typically it would take us, I'd say 7 to 14 days, like just to get it edited up and ready to ship off.
Okay.
And we'll get it posted to the different sites.
All right, cool. Yeah, I'll let you guys do your thing. All right. Take it easy, guys.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Bye.
See ya. All right, I think we'll re-chop that up so I can just like cut it in 2 spots. All right, I have a thought. I hope the audience resonates with this thought. My thought here, and there's something that Yuji said that I think everybody here needs to really listen to, and I want to like double down. So I'm leaning in a little bit closer. See how body language matters. That's a episode for another day. It goes down in the DMs. What do I mean by that? I mean that you need to continually expand your network and be intentional about it. You need to use tools like LinkedIn or similar tools that are out there to continually expand your network. Expand your network to other SEs. You never know where those other SEs are going to go. And guess what happens when you find 30 minutes for them today? In 5 years from now, when they're at some really cool company that you want to get into, guess what they're going to remember? The person that took the 30-minute call originally with them. It's something that I make sure that I find time pretty much every week or every other week to just give back as much as possible. So if you hit me in my DMs, like odds are I will probably look to find time with you. Surprisingly enough, I try to do that as much as possible because, again, you never know where somebody's going to go. But also, you should be strategically looking at other folks that you want to connect with. Maybe you're like somebody that's super interested in becoming a product manager. Well, reach out to 5 product managers on LinkedIn and say like, hey, I'm really interested in this. Here's where I'm at today. Like, I want to learn more about your role. Would you mind hopping on a 30-minute call with me? I'd really appreciate it. Guarantee you'll probably get 1 response back. And guess what you've done? You've now expanded your network. Imagine if you do that 10 times throughout the year. Now you have 10 other people. Imagine if you do that every week throughout the year. Now you have 50 new folks that are in your network. So look, building your network and being strategic about it, I think always aligns you to helping out and finding the next role for you. So it's always something that's beneficial for you. You can think of your network much like gold. It is your currency in so many different ways. And I just don't think many SEs like are focused on it that much. Go look at your AE's page compared to your SE page. It'll be like SE page, 0 posts, 600 people that they're connected to. AE page, 4,000 connections, all stuff, because they're continually networking with all the folks that they meet, allowing them to just stay on top of that network. I think that's just like a call out for me that I don't think we talk about nearly enough. It is super, super important, even outside of like the financial compensation stuff, man. Network is also currency.
Yeah, I always like the saying, dig your well before you need it. And that way when you are in need of some water, you've already got the well there ready for you. And then it also comes out more like genuine when you are networking to get to know people and building that relationship. So your first time talking to someone is not like, hey, I need a job. Like, can you help me? So yeah, very much strategic networking, and it's something that I know both Ryan and I try to do on a daily, weekly basis. So if you hit us up with, I will say, don't hit us up with just like, how do I break into sales engineering? Because we'll just point you to some of our podcasts and our existing content that is already out there. Like, be more specific. And look, we're happy to help, but we also expect you to do some homework. Like, we want to be helpful, but you got to come to the table with something. I think the hardest thing for someone to do is like, I mean, like, frankly, you have to show like what's in it for them. Like a conversation, there has to be some interest on the other side for me being down to give 30 minutes of my time, which, as we know, as SEs are sometimes really difficult to find when you're slammed on back-to-back calls, and that 30 minutes is a 30 minutes between me eating my lunch or me having a conversation with someone. So you have to keep that in mind. On the flip side, just to play a little bit of devil's advocate there, don't just spray and pray. Have something interesting, so that the person on the other side is also not walking away with nothing.
An amazing skill set to have for anybody in business is to never just like come to somebody asking for something. It's coming to somebody like well educated with the ask. Hey Ryan, hey Samir, I am reaching out because I am looking to break into sales engineering. I have listened to these podcasts. Here's the notes that I have, but I'm still not able to cross blank thing that I'm looking for. What would you recommend? Wow, now you've come to me. Now I know you've taken the time to listen to the podcast and the information that we've put out, and you're looking for something specific that we haven't hit on yet. All right, guess what? I'm willing to help out with that. You know what I'm not willing to help out with? Just like, hey, I'm looking to break into sales engineering. I really think I deserve to be paid a lot more money, just like these other SEs that are out there. All right, like, great. Like everybody thinks that, you know, like I don't know. I don't know how else to like phrase that better. Like you should always come to somebody prepared with what you've done. And look, like Yuji hit it perfectly. SEs are willing to help out a ton. I'm willing to help out. Someone's willing to help out. Go find 50 other SEs that are on the Diary of a Sales Engineer page, and I guarantee you they are also willing to help out. It's just like part of your nature as a sales engineer. But come to somebody with a point of view and be intentional about it. Don't just spray and pray and say, like, this is what I'm looking for. Say, here's what I'm looking for. Here's the research that I'm done. Can you help me with blank? And I think you'll get some really good responses. On top of that, like, I think today's episode was really impactful because, you know, we've talked about the compensation piece, but not as detailed as this. I think it's important though to have these conversations. And something that I genuinely super appreciate about Yuji is as they're filling these roles, he does that post where it's like, we've helped person get this job at 280K, at 220, at 235, at go look at that. So that way, if you're at a company, right, you're that technical support that got promoted to be an SE, and you're sitting in this role and you're getting paid 110K after 4 years. It's like, oh, maybe I should be looking elsewhere. So like utilize your resources and see exactly like what the landscape and what the market is telling you. I think that's like, you know, these are really important things. And you should also talk to your other friends that are in seat in other pre-sales companies and honestly just be transparent about that. I know it's taboo. Like I know my parents' generation, they believe you should never discuss these things over dinner. I'm on the opposite front. I think you should be like upfront and honest about these things with your friends, and it can help open new doors and make you see things a different way. So I think it's a really important conversation to have, and maybe something that we need to do more often here is like really sit down and talk about this. Like, here's how SEs get paid. Here's why it's a fruitful career, and you know, here's why you should go make it happen. You know, so many SEs I think get stuck at that first thing of like, I want to do it, but it's hard. If you want to do it and it's hard, you got to know that there is like the rainbow after the hard road, right? And I think as long as you know what the future can entail, the hard work will be worth it. I'm here to tell everybody, like, if this is something that you think you want to do, go for it. Make the leap of faith. Do the work. It might take 3 months. It might take 6 months. It might take 9 months. It might take a year of hard work. Take the leap of faith, though, and in 3 years from now, like, your life might be totally changed.
100%. And I think that was, honestly, it was awesome talking to someone like Yuji, just because he is, one, been in the industry for a long time, and two, he has seen hundreds of offers and getting real numbers, like and hearing that and like what is possible and what that curve looks like from an IC to a manager, frontline versus director versus going all the way up, like super valuable. I mean, I honestly did not know any of the ranges and like what I think it just opens you up to what could be my like career possibility. And that's yeah, I think there needs to be a little bit more transparency within I mean pay in general, but I honestly like never knew what is a good SE pay. Like you go on Reddit and read stuff over there. But
yeah, Reddit's a great spot, man. Like, we just Reddit, but also like Reddit's sick, and it's awesome. You can find great info on there, find like good sub thread. But yeah, I mean, like, the better stats we have, it sounds like you just got some plans to really do some like stat analysis on this stuff from having seen hundreds and hundreds of offer. I'm really looking forward to that because knowledge is power. Like in any capacity, knowledge is power, especially as you're negotiating those contracts. And that's why I think like every SC that's listening here today, like you're thinking about making a change, job, breaking in, going for that senior leadership role, like might as well have somebody in your corner helping you out. Coaches are meant to be there to help drive you, push you, and help you land that next role. So I think it's an amazing thing. I'd highly encourage everybody here to do so.
Yeah, and I think my closing thoughts here for any of the CROs listening, if we have that in our audience, spiff your SCs.
I was gonna say it. We're so on the same page. That's how I wanted to end episode 2. Nailed it, Samir. Spiff your SEs.
All right, that's the pod. Spiff your SCs. We'll see you all later.
Everyone.